when we look at the muscles and ligaments of the foot, this is not an anatomy lesson, this is just looking at how complex the foot is. And once we take away one component of this major structure of the foot, we start to of the foot. And we know this from our observations in diabetes. So this is not a type of device that we use in the UK. We don't use this really in the NHS purely because we don't know enough about it, probably. Prosthetic devices, are they functional or are they purely aesthetic? I would say initially they're probably aesthetic, but maybe there is a place for them somewhere if we have more research. I'll look at that further on. So these are the type of devices that I think people would be looking at, sort of like slip-on devices, almost like a below-knee amputation prosthetic, which is a silicone device. The only issue with these type of devices are they are made of silicone. They do make the feet sweat, and in our diabetic foot population, there may be a consideration of tissue loss, tissue breakdown underneath a hot device like this. So the other issue is the application of these devices may not be suitable for some of our amputations. Most of our amputations are ray amputations, and fitting a device on a ray amputation of the type I've seen would be quite difficult. So we simply use quite a lot of toe fillers. We use a formable waterform device here, which is mixed, and then you can form any type of filler that you want in between a toe, or you can buy off-the-shelf silicone devices. And these often are used to prevent toe subluxation, deviation when you have an amputation of a part of the toe. This is quite an extreme example of a adductor valgus foot deformation here, but the toe devices and the silicone devices are placed in between where the toe spaces should be. So there is a place for some type of prosthesis between a site that's been amputated. And quite often enough, we use custom orthotics for partial foot amputations. So when the patient's healed, we usually send the patient to an orthotist who gets fitted with a device that always restores function and gait and stability of the foot. These devices distribute pressure, and then they often take up the space where a toe amputation is made, like this first ray or a transmetatarsal amputation. But we know that this is important because analysis of studies have shown that once you take away the first metatarsal head, you have a massive increase of pressure against the second and then the lesser metatarsal joints. So with this study, it showed that at least 60% of patients had high plantar pressure under the second metatarsal head, which is obviously vulnerable for our neuropathic ischemic type foot patients. So custom orthotics extend further just to not just the orthotic, but the shoe as well. So you have to have a good orthotic made by a good orthotist, which reduces the pressure. And this type of prosthetic fits inside a shoe. Get this wrong, and you often get the foot, or in this case, the transmetatarsal or Chopard foot slipping out of the shoe. You have to get this absolutely right. It's important that the prosthetic fits inside the shoe, to a certain degree. So none of these devices really work without an extended shank or like a carbon plate. So most shoes are fitted with a metal plate in the sole and a carbon plate which allows the shoe to stay stiff without bending where the amputated areas are missing. So without these devices, the shoe would bend at the center of the foot. You often get creasing and then plump and then forefoot pressures on a transmetatarsal or a toe amputation site. And quite often enough, we put a rocker into the sole of the shoe, which allows the heel to strike and toe off without any bending of the shoe. So the insole is fitted, the device is fitted into the shoe with a shank, carbon plate, and extended with a rocker bottom to allow the patient to enable gait toe off, heel strikes toe off. So I did think about why we don't use devices like this in the NHS, and like I said before, it's probably related to the cost and the aesthetic properties around using prosthetic silicone devices on prosthesis. There are some studies that do tell us, this is really a crude example of some of the conventional foot prosthesis on the left against a silicone foot prosthesis, which is used in this study. And this particular study looked at the gait velocity, cadence, and length of the patient walking barefooted with a partial with amputation of the foot, in this case a show part, against barefooted patient with a silicone device, as you just seen in the previous slide there. And then it was compared again with the patients walking with footwear and conventional prosthesis, which is just a device fitted in an insole fitted in the shoe, compared with the footwear and silicone devices. Now, the comparison between both barefooted and with the experimental type silicone devices showed there was terminal gait measurement differences or increases within the prosthetic devices, which was slightly significant, statistically significant, which does give some bearing on using a device, but in this particular case, there were only 4 subjects used in this study. So, quite a small study again. And then in this study here, there was 56 patients who were recruited using an observational study against a matched group and a control group. Only 7 subjects were actually recruited into the study, where they looked at a subject with partial first metatarsal amputation who used insoles, conventional insoles, and other subjects with transmetatarsal with this rank amputation who used fillers and a slippers type socket, against subjects who used Charcot amputation site and a clamshell prosthetic silicone prosthetic device. Now, in these particular cases, the gait of the amputation patient with the first metatarsal amputation was almost comparable to the person without the amputation sites. But there was only one particular case in this study against patients with metatarsal amputation sites were completely compromised when they had a transmetatarsal with this rank amputation. Gait abnormalities was significantly evident. And then the patient with the prosthetic device in the show parts did present with some restored function and effective foot length, because they incorporated the device actually incorporated a stiff forefoot, supporting the body's amputee's body mass during loading, but not for power efficiency. And in both these studies, they looked at gait efficiency around ankle, the ankle and the hip, and they found that the patients wearing prosthetic devices did actually get a little bit more of a gait efficiency around a slight power efficiency around hip and ankle wearing a prosthetic device, but not maybe significantly enough to suggest it's going to make a massive difference. So, in conclusion, really, should minor amputations of the foot be followed by using a prosthetic? I would say there's not enough large empirical research to make an informed decision. There is some evidence of some power efficiency when wearing a prosthetic device, but I wouldn't say there's more studies that needed to be evaluated using gait analysis. And then both our subject research studies here excluded our wider diabetic or vascular compromised patient. So in conclusion, I would say we need some more research in this area, but it's not something we'll probably look into more on in the future, especially as a service as large as ours. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for